Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and thank you once again for tuning in to Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio channel. I once again, am your host, Jerry Avalos, bringing to you all the fun and interesting news and information that major media tends to not report on or really care about. But we do, and that's why we're here all the time, as often as we can, to partake in the information sharing and elaboration that goes on here at Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio, as well as through our online community on our Facebook and soon to be our website too. For our longtime listeners here, for at least as long as time as we've been doing this, anyways. We are resolving the web issues, so soon there will be the universaltruthevolution.com website, where we're hoping to make the website a dynamic information sharing site, along with a lot of other things. Just as we said here, we like to create community, since that's really how it has to be, really, to thrive in this world and maybe off world if we're so lucky. Today, our guest is Joseph Aguirre, and we're going to be talking quite a bit about all different kinds of subjects. And I think I have Joseph with us now already. Joseph, are you there?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're breaking up a little bit, but I can hear you pretty good.
Great.
So great to have you on. Rather than read off a little spiel about you, it's best to just let you speak for yourself there. So why don't you tell all of our listeners right now a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay. Well, I've been into astrology for about 11 years and into Reiki for about 10 years. And actually, let me first off say thank you for the Universal Truth Evolution team for getting on here, and Jerry, and as well as Tamara, I believe her name is. I just want to thank all of and everybody to making this happen. And so, yeah. But
it's our pleasure. Thank you for being on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I initially actually got into all of this to prove my mom wrong, actually, because she got into all of this mysterious, esoteric stuff, and she was actually the one that attuned me to a Reiki Master. Huh. And so I kind of got concerned with her because she was talking to spirits and channeling all this energy, and I was like, oh no, this time came a lot sooner than expected. And so I tried to read everything under the sun about it, and I concluded that this is the only Western consciousness or mentality, is really resistant to like holistic healing and just basically taking ownership of your own health.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. Go ahead. Please continue.
Oh, and then I just really resonated with astrology because it really helped me develop a good sense of individuation of a person. And when you look at your own birth chart, it's kind of like looking at your own spiritual mandala. And as we'll go further into the aspects of it, which are just certain planets that are conjuncted, for an example, is basically when they resonate in the same sign. And those are somewhat considered hard aspects. And when you actually look at them and start resonating with them, they're like little cosmic seeds waiting to be opened. And, of course, they have, like, strengths and functionalities and also dysfunctionalities. It really depends on how the individual really works with it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I like how you put that, the chart being a spiritual mandala. I don't think I've ever heard anyone refer to it in that sense, but that actually does make a lot of sense, and it's really cool that you phrased it in that way.
Yeah, and then it kind of just reprograms the whole consciousness to look at things on a holistic level, opposed to, in the science Western form, we have the tendency to break things down and look at them, opposed to relating to them, because you kind of exclude the human being itself. But as far as it affects consciousness, I experienced and I've seen these validations, validate themselves. Like the most common and easy one to point out would be like the really Gemini energy, and the Mercurial mostly. When like the simple archetype would be the writer or the reader that's always communicating or absorption and trying to absorb all that information. And it even takes, physical archetypes and how physical appearance on people. It's really, really fascinating. And when I noticed this everywhere, I couldn't get enough of it. And ultimately, it really kind of fine-tuned my, I guess, for lack of a better term, cosmic consciousness, I guess. Because, it helped me realize the micro and the macrocosms within everything. I guess singularity, especially, singularity consciousness.
Yeah, that's interesting, and actually, I thought that was kind of entertaining how you said that you got into this to prove your mom wrong. I actually kind of started getting into astrology myself, like consistently or following it consistently. So I say when I was a senior in high school, so it would have been like 1996, and I started it too because a friend and I. In our math class, we're just saying this. I don't think this stuff is too real, or it's too general sometimes to really be considered accurate. And then so we're like, well, all right, let's just monitor it every day because we're into science, we're into math. So we'll monitor what ours say every day, and we'll just mark the hits, and when we'll compare because we're different signs. Like I totally forget his sign now. I think he was a Cancer, but I'm a Leo, and
okay.
And so we would just do this, and actually it's funny, and I totally do not endorse or think it's a good idea for underage people to drink, but we would bet at the end, like a 40 at the end of who basically we would bet whoever didn't keep, that was part of our homework. We would do our homework, and whoever didn't do if I did the most homework, he would owe me a 40, and as well as we keep the astrology thing. How many? It was weird. We were very studious partiers, So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So but anyways, I'm sorry. But yeah, it was just, so I think that was it's just I kind of got into the same context of well, let's see if I can prove this thing wrong, and it just never happened. It just never happened. So.
You can't, and I just actually recently read an article on this Vanderbilt student professor that actually does analyzation of consciousness and the molecular structure on seasonality. And what they call it now, I guess it's a new frontier, is the fundamental scientific basis of astrology, and they call it seasonal biology. And so I believe this individual's name, if you guys want, if the listeners want to research it too, is his name's Douglas McMonahan. But it's an interesting find too, and it's just like on a break, and it just kind of validates everything and all these esoteric people that's been doing for years. It's a really good jump. I'm really excited about it.
That's interesting, and yeah, because that's one thing that I know I like to talk about quite a bit too, is the tangibility about the relationships of the planets, be it like torsion physics and hyperdimensional physics, but then how it usually ends up relating to or how I end up relating it to people is like kind of the weather, how it's it's kind of like our cosmic weather. I mean, would you agree with that statement or?
Oh, absolutely, and especially with the resonance of the moon. The moon has obviously such, a stabilizer on life itself on this planet, and when it comes to into the birth chart, it shows and reveals so much, everything to your own personal emotional needs and your own nourishment to the relationship with your mother figure. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it validate itself more times than not. Like an example, I'll say with Gemini, since it's really basic, because it's the first birth into the air elements. And most times than not, these individuals express themselves through the elements more than anything, and it's kind of cloaked within the energy of that specific sign.
Yeah, and so like with the maybe if you could, for those who aren't that familiar with astrology, could you maybe relate the different planets, so like an association, so like how, and I know how like the moons tends to be associated with the emotional expression, which kind of works into all of that you just kind of said right there. Do you think maybe we can get into that a little bit? We might have just lost Joseph here. So we will see if he comes back. We actually have a caller, though. So while we're waiting, let's see what happens. Or this could be Joseph again. Let's see what happens. Hey, Joe. Is this you? Or hello, caller. Hello. You're on.
You talk to me?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're on Universal Truth Evolution. Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, cool. I just tuned in. I'm listening.
Yeah, that's cool. We actually kind of lost our guest here. I think he ran to some technical
I heard that. I'm used to this on Blog Talk.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, all right. Well, did you have any questions? You want me to talk about anything real quick? Well, we got some time to kill here.
Oh, no. Are you doing readings or just generalizations about astrology?
Well, right now we're waiting for Joseph. I think maybe he might get into some readings a little later, but I think we're just waiting for him to reconnect.
Because you're going to talk about what's happening in 2011, right?
I'm sure we'll get into that as well, yeah, especially from the, looking into astrology, it really is our universal clock, so to speak. So
right, because I keep hearing about this shift, this major shift. I'd love to know what planets are bringing this about in particular. Maybe he could tell us about that. That'd be interesting to know. Yeah,
I'm sure we can get into a lot of that, and that was what I was hoping to get into right now before we got cut off, because it works in your question there works into the point I was making there, or starting to get into of the different relationships with planets and such.
You can always blame it on Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, it did just come out of retrograde, and there's always few little hiccups here and there, and I know today in particular, it's trying to remember the forecast and what everything, but I remember today is relatively kind of lackadaisical in a sense. In terms of relative to all the alignments that have been going on, it's been crazy.
So are you noticing the energies are different this year? Because I do. It just seems like it's better, freer, more possibilities.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a lot more aspirations. I think a lot of people feel more inspired too, and I think that really helps. That whole attitude of kind of hopefulness or positivity. So all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I definitely see that, and it's kind of interesting because I don't know if you've noticed too. In a lot of ways, things have marginally gotten more stable, So it's just like mind. So, and I think that's good because where the mind goes, so does everything else. So.
Just look at this holiday season. More people are buying stuff, so there's optimism in the air.
Yeah, that's true, and like I said, it is just interesting because it's not what I think is the most intriguing is it wasn't necessarily one particular event that's really bringing about this seemingly overall attitude of it's going to be better, we're going to make it better. It's not only is it going to be better, as people are saying we're going to make it better. So
and it seems like universally believed that last year was it was just stressful and frustrating. Delays. It's very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of challenges.
Oh yeah, and I think it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be intense still, but yeah, I think at this point, people emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or all the above, are ready for more of the challenges now. I think a lot of the naivete, shall we say, of a lot of the general populace is starting to be scrubbed out because of just the nature of everything that's going on right now is really starting to bring itself to the forefront. You know.
Yeah, the challenges probably made us all stronger, for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like, I don't know how often you listen to the show, but I've heard, I tend to say that, in relation to things like this, shadow government, Illuminati, the man, trying to keep us down, whatever, it's like we have to look at it like the weight that we're exercising our will with, and that we can't get angry at the weight. We can get a little frustrated at how difficult it is to bring that, thing up, but, we ultimately, like you said, it's making us stronger.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So hopefully, Joseph will reconnect with us here, and we can have this discussion with him too.
So did he call you? Did he call in to get through initially, or do you call him?
It kind of works different, honestly. Just depending on who the guest is. Some relatively boring technicality of blog talk radio stuff, but we got the time, so screw it. But yeah, it really just kind of depends because there's different ways, like just how you're calling in through the blog talk, right, through Skype or something.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
general number. Yeah.
Yeah. So he is so was Joseph here, and so you just kind of you can connect through Skype. So actually, anyone out there, since time here, if you guys want to jump on Skype and jump in here with us, you can. So yeah, you can do it that way, or we also do have the call-in number. That you can use a landline or a cell phone or anything like that to just call in as well. That number for everyone out there is 661-621-7530.
Yeah, I think this might be the. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Oh, I know what happened there. I think this might be the first or second time I've heard your show. I think there's another. I listened to it maybe last year once.
That's cool.
What types of guests you usually have on?
Yeah, well, thanks for listening to the show, at least if it's just today. Thank you for coming today. Because right now,
what types of guests you usually? Okay, I'm sorry.
I said no, because right now this is helping out a lot, honestly. So it's cool. Thank you.
So what types of guests do you usually have on?
It just really depends. We have right now we're talking a lot about astrology and things like that, but we also get people on who also we're like kind of like whistleblowers or whistleblowers in different projects, like different secret projects, as well as different researchers and different experts on different subjects, like actually like ufology or exopolitics. Like next week, actually, just for everyone out there. So we actually have Carrie Cassidy on from Project Camelot. She'll be on Tuesday, and then on Thursday, actually, we are going to have Stephen Bassett, affluent figure in the exopolitics field of study. So yeah, it.
You have a lot of conspiracy theorists on and things like that.
A lot of different stuff like that, as well as a lot of metaphysical responses to like how we're doing astrology today, and then eventually we'll be getting some professional psychics and remote viewers and stuff like that. We have a lot of different. And actually, we do have people like Dr. Carmen Boltier, who did the documentary, The Pyramid Code, I believe it's called, that gets into all the different the real knowledge that we've actually acquired about the ancient Egyptian societies and the pyramids that really, as I think a lot of us know, does not fall into that mold of slaves in the Bible. You know what I mean? So it's pretty interesting stuff. So we'll have her on there, and that's just coming from a pure scientific sense.
What do you think that'll be? Because that sounds really interesting. What do you think that'll be on?
I think we're waiting back to confirm on that, actually. So it's just a matter of when her schedule permits. So hopefully somewhere here, obviously within the next early part of this year here. Yeah. So I would really love to talk to her about quite a few things. So I don't know if you've seen that the documentary before, but it's really, really good. And actually, everyone out there, if you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It's awesome. So.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh. So we're still waiting for Joe here, and thanks everyone for bearing with us. We have these technical difficulties. Hopefully, nothing too intense happened on Joe's end, and maybe we can get him to actually just call in with the number here soon. But either way, we got a little conversation with. Do you mind giving your name or? Oh
no, not at all. I'm Steve.
Well, Steve, we're hanging out with Steve here. It's right now. It's the Steve and Jerry show, talking about
the Steve and Joe show. I like that.
Steve and Jerry. So, yeah. So what actually? Since you're here, how did you find the show? Just out of curiosity.
I listen to Blog Talk all the time, and I love shows about spirituality and stuff. But I gotta tell you, Joe, my bus is approaching, and I'm one of those people that does not like to talk on the bus, so I'm gonna have to mute myself now. So you're on your own.
Yeah, that's cool. No worries. So thanks for calling in, Steve, and hopefully Joe will be on here soon. And either way, I'll probably be talking about something. So thanks for
good luck.
tuning in.
Good luck to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So that was Steve, everyone. Thanks, Steve. You rock. So since we got some time to kill and waiting for Joe here, hopefully we'll be able to connect again soon. I'm just going to go ahead and do the daily show then. Start getting through some different stuff going on. We do have another caller here, so we can see who this is. Why not? Caller, you're on Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, Jerry, this is Joseph.
Hey, Joe. Welcome back.
Hey, I do not know what happened. My Skype just bunked out, and when I tried to log in, it said that I needed a credit card.
Whoa, hey. Wacky.
So I am extremely apologetic for all the listeners. Man, talk about almost an epic fail.
No worries. So we had a great conversation with the new listener. So it kind of kept it going. So
okay.
But yeah. So I guess where we kind of left off there, when I saw you dropped off, was I was just asking if maybe you can get into the relations and associations of the different planets and like the Moon, Mars, Venus, and how those work into one's chart.
Okay, I'll be happy to. Well, let's go ahead and obviously start with the sun. The sun's obviously your ultimate goal. And when somebody says, "Oh, my sun is in Pisces," they're ultimately saying, "Okay, I want to be a Pisces." And for me, from what I experienced, they're actually Virgos in a sense, in a weird way, that at the end of their life, they have experienced or evolved into more of that Piscean energy. Mm-hmm. And so, but when it comes to like Mars, that's the more the aggressive, archetypical warrior energy. It's also related to sexual energy in the sense that it's all about procreation and identifying with, hey, this is me, this is the fire. And in certain placements with Mars, for an example, it's more aggressive or it's broken down. For an example, when Mars is naturally, its energy is rough and just egotistical. But when it's in a water sign, for example, like Scorpio, the ego is broke down and then it's overwhelmed by the water energy. And so all that ego is broken down and all that aggressive that we all recognize Mars to be turns into Scorpio passion, I guess, which I can relate because I'm a first sun sign in Scorpio and I analyzed the heck out of it. And so, that's a great example of how the different energies express itself in different signs. Mm-hmm. And Venus, beautiful Venus, is obviously the beautiful woman planet, and it's all about aesthetics when it comes to Venus energy. But it is expressed differently with Libra, which is the natural ruler of Venus, as well as Taurus. And so, and also with these planets, they're all androgynous. And so they express themselves in a masculine and a feminine form. And naturally, Libra is actually a masculine aspect of Venus. And so they're all about the interrelationship part. And so the Venus energy is really expressed well in that sign because it's all about interrelating with partners. It's really based on a on a you and me basis because I am looking for love, but it's all about they get more sense of the exchangement opposed to like being in an actual relationship.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, and in the feminine part of Venus is Taurus. And everybody loves Tauruses because they're all beautiful, but at the same time they can be naturally slow and stubborn, which isn't their fault. It's just the second sign of the zodiac, and so there's not a really good, strong collective for that. And so, and when it's actually in Taurus, when Venus is in Taurus, for an example, it's naturally harmonious because that creative, beautiful energy is expressed, balanced there, essentially. And if anybody knows a full-blown Taurus that, is a full-blown, the best energy that is expressed in that is cooking. Since Taurus is an earth sign, they make the most of their physical resources.
You want to hear something funny? I actually have a good friend who I believe she says she's a triple Taurus, but is ambivalent to food. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like she's completely ambivalent to food though. But everything else of the Taurus characteristics, oh yeah, big time. But that is one thing. But now that you mention it, because most other Tauruses I know, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and they really excel in the culinary arts. Venus is a planet not only of relationship, but it's also a planet of money. And the money factor in Taurus, is exalted essentially in that part because it's worth on self-value and physical resources. And so, the Tauruses that I know, they tend to be, a little bit on the materialistic side, but it's usually like a poverty type of mentality because they're usually essentially hoarding too much and they're not letting go. Mm-hmm. And that's in kind of like in the dysfunctional energy. If you hoard too much, you have this fear of loss. And so you don't have this really good sense of like, hey, I am deservable of nice things. Then on the good positive manner, they're really good to money management, they're really good accountants. The energy is really good at counting money because they don't try to spend too much or hoard too much.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. A lot of the Tauruses that I know, tend to have a very money mind. It doesn't necessarily mean they're greedy, but it just seems like they have a money mind or something. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and that's the earth element expressing itself.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. One of the planets I did have a question on specifically. I don't know if you're running down the list, but I was actually Neptune. Neptune is one that it always seems like there's no one really hasn't really nailed that one down for me as far as association, and I'm still sort of kind of filling that one out a lot myself, personally. So I'd love to get your input on some of the further out planets too.
Oh, I love Neptune too. Reason being because it's the new ruler, I guess, of Pisces. Because before the traditional ruler of Pisces, before it was discovered, was Jupiter. And if you look at Jupiter and Neptune together, they essentially share the same type of energies in the sense of expansion and dissolvement. Currently, the ruler of Pisces is Neptune. And Neptune, first let's talk about the moon and Venus again and Neptune. And essentially they're all 3 octaves from each other. And obviously the moon being ruled by Cancer is the keen rush birth into the water element. And so it still shares those psychic energies and artistic values, but not to the degree of the higher octave of Neptune. And so, when Neptune is obviously is in Pisces, it's the last sign of the zodiac. And so all of that pre-collective consciousness of the 11 prior signs is forced into that last quadrant or that last sign of Pisces. And to understand Neptune, you have to understand really essentially how Pisces dissolves things, and it's a mutable sign. And when mutable just means it's a different type of seed quality, and mutable, fixed, and cardinals. But mutable basically birth into the next phase And then you'll jump into the cardinal sign of Aries. And cardinals is just basically changes initiated. And hence, and based on seasonality, that's where the solstices and the equinoxes are. But Neptune has the great archetypical energy of the mystic on a magical basis, because the ego is completely dissolved in that planet. And when it's exemplified like that, it has the ability to shapeshift, for an example, because Pisces always reminds me of chameleon energy. It's always extremely adaptable, and it can mirror whatever it's in, including Virgos and Sagittarius and Geminis, because they're all mutable signs. And to like the really poor portion or the dysfunction of being a water sign, I guess, is that you can get flooded by your emotions. And Pisces tend to overdo it, just like Jupiterian energy does, like Sagittarius. They kind of aim for the sky, but it can overdo it. And unfortunately, traditionally, the house of Pisces was viewed as the house of troubles, because it had all that collective energy forcing it through, and water signs in general can succumb to a lot of addictions. But Neptune's a really, really spiritual planet, a chameleon planet. But on the feminine part of Neptune, it's also the sacrifice, the Mother Teresa, the one that comes to the earth and helping her children. And I think I'm pronouncing this wrong, the Buddhava in Indian language and tradition. It's like the Buddha comes back and continues to come back until all of the children are saved.
Well, see, Joe, I have to tell you, an interesting thing just happened. I totally just dropped off and didn't hear a word you just got done saying, and barely got back right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like the same thing that happened to you. Like, I just stopped talking. I'm like, oh, do we lose Joe again? And I was like, I seen your number on here, and then my switchboard went down, and then I had to get in with Skype. So.
And this is usually, typical during a mercurial retrograde. I don't think it's still a retrograde, or maybe.
Well, I know it just ended.
Shadow.
Yeah, it just ended. But you know how it is. It's not like once it ends, it's like everything's over. There's always like a few like little putter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we astrologers call it, the shadow of Mercury. It can happen actually a week before and after.
Yeah, I'd say at least.
Exactly. The one prior to this actually wasn't as strong because it was in the home sign of Virgo, and Mercury is actually exalted in Virgo, and exaltations means basically the planet is positively expressed in that certain sign. It's like the home sign. It loves to be in its natural energy sign, and so it's exemplified more easier. And that's why this prior retrograde wasn't as intense as any other ones of the prior years, because it was in that natural mercurial Virgo energy. Still there, Jerry?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Okay, great. But so you didn't hear part of the Neptune?
I heard. I got like most of the where you're talking about. You got back to the water portion of it, like after the octaves. I mean, I heard most of a lot of it. I think I dropped out there for the past maybe a minute there or something, or less than that probably. So I almost got all of it. It was just like the very tail end.
Oh, okay. It was probably the dysfunctionality of the water signs with even Cancer, Scorpios, and Pisces. They have this ability to succumb to addictions. And me personally, I believe that's just because there's the veil to their unconsciousness is so thin. Yeah. And so it kind of opens the floodgates to their unconscious really easily. And, people laugh about, Scorpios being winos and Pisces being all kinds of, disharmonious substances. But, to each is their own. It just depends on how the individual handles the energy.
Yeah, that makes sense though. That really does. Especially I was actually my dad is a Pisces, and I was just telling my mom yesterday that I was like, I understand why these guys are like just so out there most of the time, because relative to most of us, they're like relatively high all the time. So in a sense, because of those thin veils you're saying.
Yes, exactly, and it's mostly really thin in Pisces. It's just fascinating. My whole life, growing up, with friends in high school, I had a brief interest in this, but I didn't really give it too much thought until my mom started going quote unquote crazy. But
going insane.
It's just yeah, exactly. Waking up. It's just this beautiful alchemical marriage, and I always go back to Carl Jung when he talks about archetypes and symbols of the unconsciousness. It's there. You really can't deny it. And in mythology, there's always truth in those stories. Have it be different, but the undertone is always the same. Always the same.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm actually reading. I'm a little over halfway through Carl Jung, the archetypes of the unconscious. That 400-page monster or whatever.
That big, thick monster. Yes, that was my first one. That one's so fascinating.
Yeah, I'm actually halfway through that one right now, and yeah, you're right. It's interesting because how relate that to the stars, but as you're saying, it like relates everywhere, and I think that's one of the cool things about astrology too, because not only does it give us our personal indicators and calibrations, but it also gives us, like, as a populace, something to look forward or backwards at too. You know what I mean? And in terms of what you could say predictions and such.
Yeah, and I'm not your average astrologer. I don't do horoscopic readings. I don't look at cosmic weather because there's just so much can influence stuff. I'd like to, but when you come to start predicting things, you leave yourself so open to different influences, and so I kind of stay away from the natural astrologer, and so I kind of just focus more of like the evolution of the soul. When you look at the person's chart and see what they're going through, and you can empower them. It's ultimately the goal is self-empowerment. This beautiful alchemical marriage, within your chart.
Yeah, absolutely, and I like how that's kind of what I said. I'm not really into kind of looking at like an astrological chart and saying, oh, this time is going to be this, and I'm guessing that like how all these channels like the financial system is going to collapse on this day because of the stars. Like, I don't think that's cool, or it's usually that effective. But I just kind of look at like how we're saying the retrograde. Like, you can know that there's a retrograde coming up. Get ready. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But yeah, I hear you on the as far as the integration and the soul aspect. It's huge. And maybe you can get into how that relates to significant like events in our lives and such.
When it goes to that, like in different parts of your life, that is really interesting because it comes in different segments. But I will bring up actually Saturn's return, and it comes every, I believe, 9 years. And I just recently looked this up because I was actually going through it. and to understand Saturn's return, you have to actually understand the fundamentals of Saturn. Saturn essentially rules Capricorn, and it's a cardinal earth sign. And if you know any Capricorns, they can be really conservative, or really the opposite, since it's still the earth sign. But I can talk so much about this particular sign because in astrotheology and religion, it's actually depicted as the devil. And I can go further into that in detail later because it's extremely interesting. But when you actually have a Saturn's return, you basically have all these obstacles and influences telling you, stop, try again, not going to work. And if anybody really knows a full-blown Capricorn, they can succumb to depression a lot. And they have the natural polarity of Earth is essentially negative, not in the bad way. That's just the way their mentality is. And so they can succumb to Saturn's face, is what I like to call it. But when you go through these in segments of, I believe, 9 years, you can go through really tough times. And if you don't embrace that change with ease, obviously you can be down to your knees and experience the planet of karma and structure, which is Saturn. And Saturn is the most misunderstood, to me, planet of all planets.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Saturn. Actually.
Okay. Well, man, where do I start?
Yeah, I know it's cool, and I know a little bit about it, but that's why I say I'm fascinated to hear what you have to say.
Well, with Saturn, again, it's the planets of karma, time, and structure and everything. But let's go talk about Capricorn. Capricorn is the final Earth sign of that last quadrant, and so all of the humanistic needs are actually expressed in that sign, and that's why in astrotheological means they in religion or Christianity they can suppress a lot of natural human aspects, and so Mars is actually exalted in Capricorn, meaning again all those natural warrior chauvinistic male energies are expressed in Capricorn, positively in a sense, because they need to basically bring all that energy, the prior Earth experiences, and bring it to a whole, because the 10th house actually rules on a broader society level. And that's why Capricorns tend to have this weight of feeling that they need to save their world, or that last quadrant has the energy that they need to save the world, because all those prior energies that they learned, they need to use them out and put them to work, and put them to use, basically. Mm-hmm. And so in religion, the ego is identified as the devil. And so the devil is that Capricornic goat horn personification of Saturn, And so and when you look at an individual that has all those money, power, sex, greed characteristics, yeah, everybody has those. And so in religion, they created the devil, in my perception, or the ego, to blame somebody else. And so you can have this illusion of separation. And everybody knows that if you suppress anything far enough, it's going to manifest itself in different areas. And so there's this picture that I saw a while ago. I can't remember the artist, but it actually showed a picture of I'll probably get a lot of stuff from this, but it had Jesus behind a mask of the devil. And symbolically, what that is saying is like actually when you get over the whole material illusion of the ego, power, greed, and all those things, that you just at least don't identify with them so much, you can basically find that behind the light of the Christ. Because after Capricorn, before Capricorn is that Sagittarian energy, and then the Pisces energy. And so it's kind of like an evolution of consciousness. It's like, okay, when you remove that devil face or all those those fundamentals of the ego that breaks it down to you, you actually find your higher light self, which is expressed in the sign of Pisces when the ego is dissolved.
Interesting.
Yeah. But when it comes to actual planet Saturn, man, it's really a heavy energy in the sense that it's naturally Earth-oriented. But it's always a teacher. You cannot underestimate the Lord of Karma, is what you say it. And that's why the Capricorns are really powerful individuals if they can get over that whole illusion of fear. Because somewhere in the past, in the cosmic past, somebody told Capricorns, no, try again. And you have to actually also look at Saturn in different people's charts too, especially if there's a certain hard aspect to it. Because then you can actually learn stuff. For an example, I'll use myself an example. I have a Saturn conjuncted with Mercury, and Mercury is obviously the planet of small thinking and communication and really speedy thought process. Anytime Saturn touches the planet, it kind of it dims it down and says slow down. And so I've personally always dealt with dyslexia, communication problems as a younger child, and just organization of thoughts. And it's probably the whole indigo thing that I've been told many times that I was, and blah, 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 blah. And I've looked at that, and so I meditated basically on that conjunction. And when you open those little gates in your birth chart, it opens this whole pathway of energy, and it depends on how you take it. You can use it to balance yourself and heal yourself. And so basically, when a planet was conjuncted with anything, like with Mercury in my position, somebody told me, like, hey, try talking again, try thinking again. You're going to have a lot of issues with people doubting you, and in turn you'll doubt yourself. And that's a great example of how Saturn affects planets. And I honestly, I'd rather have a Saturn conjuncted Mercury than a Saturn with a moon, even though the moon and Saturn actually have a really good relationship, but it can be really painful on the unconsciousness. Does that answer your question, kind of?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, definitely. Because I know that Saturn in a lot of mythic lore too was, I think I forgot which culture it was. I think it might have been the Mayas. Referred to it as the arcane sun or something like that. And so yeah, they talked a lot of it. I mean, I think a lot of the common associations in astrology have to do with like judgment and karma. So, but I think a lot of people or should I say, a lot of us don't expand on what that could mean, and so that's one reason why I ask. Because obviously, you going into as much as you have, you understand like how within that bandwidth there's like universe, So
right, exactly. Oh yeah, Saturn returns every 29 years, 29.5 years, and so I'm 29 years of age now, and so I'm experiencing the end of that. And this prior 2010, I think it was just hard for everybody, and I think 2011 is just going to be so weird. I think, especially with this horrible bird situation, I do not want to know what's going on with that. That is just so. It reminds me of like this weird movie, like it's unfolding, and it's just kind of freaking me out, but it's not. What are your thoughts on that?
On just as far as the sort of what you're going through right now, or what aspect?
With the whole astrology aside for a second, just whole current events with the birds and.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's interesting that obviously there's so many different things just kind of deciding to exit. You know what I mean? And to me, it really does. I don't think this is natural, shall I say?
Right.
But I don't think it's any of the usual culprits one might say in the alternative media. I don't think it's HARP on this one. I really don't. Just because I don't. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me though if it turns out to be something we just don't know about or just didn't think about. And if it's something that I think that I saw one report today where they said that they died of external damage of some kind too, some of them. So yeah, I mean something hit them in a sense too. So it's like I don't know what can do that. And then I've seen the maps too in relation. Just to go real quick on the HARP thing. I've seen the maps in relation to the installations, but I know theoretically I think those things have quite a long range. So I'm not sure how that correlation really could be drawn by maps either.
Wow. Huh. Real briefly, did you see that article about the U.S. high official body being found? And he was in cahoots with the Arkansas experiment thing?
No, but I did hear. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Yes, I did hear about certain scientists. Yeah, kind of also accompanying these many animals at the same time. Yeah. Yeah.
I think actually good old Roger, posted that on his page, and I saw it this morning.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Actually, Aaron McComb, obviously, he actually has his newsletter where he kind of just puts everything, like all the different news he gets, and just throws it out. And that was one of the places I saw that too. And
yeah, I miss that guy. I really do.
Well, we'll have him back. We actually want to have him back on specifically to talk about this subject. So that was kind of probably why like my mind didn't hear you when you first said that, because like I'm kind of like in my mind I have that stored for the Aaron show. You know what I'm saying? So. But yeah, because then right now it's so new. It's kind of like I really don't want to speculate as more than I already did because like I mean. Really, the evidence so far doesn't suggest it's like some kind of odd natural phenomena. You know what I mean? Like it's not like some kind of weird magnetic shift that made them all decide to dive into the ground, or maybe it was. Who knows? But that's my point. It's kind of like there's just too many things, too many unknown factors. But I think once a lot more credible veterinarians and doctors and scientists get a chance to examine some of these bodies, we'll probably get a lot more pertinent information, I think. Yeah.
I just don't want to have people have this and the religious communities are going nuts, and I'm a person that kind of stays positive as well. I'm not really a fear-monger person. I think we're going to be okay. I think this kind of has a certain influence that's doing it, but we're humans. If we weren't as powerful as we are, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's true. And I think through this, the nature of the show here, we don't just kind of take things as they're handed to us, and we try to look at really what's the cause of what's going on. And especially the bird situation, and actually I know there's other animals too. I know it's different places in the world. Obviously, this is a big concern, but like I said, I think as like a lot of the main media and the way they kind of put things up there either to sensationalize or to diminish. Like, this whole firework theory, I don't know if you heard that.
I laughed so hard when I heard that explanation.
Just like the whole thing with the missiles happened off the coast. It's like, oh, it's a plane. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Right. Can you hear me okay? Because I hear it kind of breaking out there.
Oh, I can hear you fine. You saw my connection kind of weird, so.
Oh, that's right.
But,
okay. Well, we can continue more of the inner birth chart or whatever. If you have any questions, or I can just start popping off at the mouth.
Okay. Well, actually, if we're almost at the top of the hour, we'll play a song for a while, and actually have a new one today, everyone. But yeah, so if there's anything that maybe you think you want to make comment on in the next 5-7 minutes here, that'd be cool. Or we can just keep going down the line of planets or whatever you feel like moving on.
Yeah, I can get ready for the next hour, but what the next portion I would like to speak of is actually on how these great signs and the great ages affect consciousness through the ages, and we can go into that in really strong detail and how it affects. It's extremely interesting as well. That most people actually, I don't think, know about and how it works.
Yeah, actually, I guess I have another question that that I wanted to ask too. Like, how much do you get into the movements of the large comets and asteroids?
In Western astrology, it's really psychologically based and scientifically oriented, and everywhere else on the planet, it's not as scientific. So, in a sense, astrology does take account of one asteroid, and that's Chiron, and that's essentially you consider the wounded healer, and so. I'm sure has some influence on it, but I really didn't delve deep into those comets, because I know in a lot of mythologies around the world, especially the Sumerians, they watch those comets really closely, and of course, like Planet X and all that stuff too is just a whole different energy or information. So,
yeah, because I was always kind of wondering about like that, because I know how some astrologers get really into all of the different comets and everything, and I know how theoretically in terms of the physics behind astrology, how it would technically affect, I guess. But yeah, I was wondering like if you had just run into that in your own correlating with any of those. So I was just curious as to how much you got into that.
Yeah, I have not. No. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. Considering like in astrology, I mean, we're talking about the known universe. It's like you could literally start tracking billions of things if you really wanted to.
Oh, exactly. You drive yourself nuts. I almost drove myself nuts with this astrology stuff too. But ultimately, it kind of just heightened my perception. And kind of opened that whole cosmic energy gate flow, and I was able to, which we can get into too, is about connecting. I connected with the Pleiadian a while ago, and that was kind of, I believe, induced by focusing my energies towards these stars inside or outside of me. But that's in a whole different experience, but it's cool too. So we can touch that if you like.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the other thing we definitely love doing here is giving others opportunity to share their experiences, to let them know they're not really that paranormal. It's actually, they are quite normal.
Right.
We just don't talk to them.
Exactly.
You have to create the forum, right?
Yeah. Well put.
So, but yeah, so that's but yeah, and it only makes sense because we're talking about the stars, and then here on the show we talk a lot about bridging the stars in different ways, both spiritually and physically, hopefully with some of the available technologies and such. So one way or another we're all gonna sort of run into each other. If you're an expert on astrology or say you're a ghost hunter, it's like one way or another we're gonna run into each other because we're all kind of talking about the same energies in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
So, but that's cool though. So actually, I just want to say though, I really do appreciate your knowledge and insight into astrology, because you come from a very grounded point of view, and I think that's so valuable, because I think in a lot of history, I think a lot of people have associated with some like older lady in some sparkly, flowy gown, maybe with a crystal ball or something. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and I'm glad. I hope that I can make it demystify it all, especially with the work with Douglas McNaughton and his neuroscience information, and then we're slowly getting there, and my moon, Mars, and rising are all in Virgo, and if you know full-blown Virgo, they're all about the facts, and as spiritually oriented as I am, I still need, some type of factual information, and so thank you for recognizing that. I do try to approach that from a really grounded level.
Yeah, definitely. Like how you say, the Universal Truth Evolution was spearheaded by a Virgo, actually. So yeah, Aaron,
exactly,
Aaron,
and that could go off about that as far as Virgos tend to escape through the work, essentially.
Yes. Yeah, I see that a lot. I know more Virgos than just Aaron, and that's definitely a shared characteristic.
Because your sun is in Leo, it's your sister sign, and so you can tell with the position of the moon, and even mainly Venus, actually, you can tell what type of essentially lover. Not only lover in relationship, but the type of people and friends you want to surround yourself with. And so it's important to look at that as far as if you were kind of having why are these people around me and they're crazy? You should look at your moon and Venus, because that
makes
shows
sense.
so much.
Yeah, I know my moon is Sagittarius. And,
okay.
Yeah, and I guess I'm a Leo sun and a Libra ascension. And
okay.
Yeah, and but yeah, so it makes sense too, because that there is a sort of kindredness with Leo and Virgo, but it seems very sibling like, the relationships between those.
It is. It's because of that energy in the sun, and the evolution of the soul essentially is that the Leo or the Virgo used to be the Leo and so forth, and the Leo is striving to be the Virgo energy. And so they balance each other really well. And so in sister signs and everything, I had a point, but I lost it. But
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But yes, sister signs. Oh yeah, and that's why sometimes since all my planets are in Libra, but my sun is in Scorpio, I don't really have too much patience for Libras, which is really ironic because I'm half a Libra. And Sagittarians don't really have the patience for Scorpios because they feel that they already went through all that transformation and rebirth that the Scorpio is known to be about. And they could go on and on and on. But what's interesting to note about like the Aries and Pisces cusp, those can be kind of crazy individuals in the sense that all of that collective energy from that prior 12 signs of Pisces Pisces is shoved into the mind of the head of Aries, and in Aries it rules the head. And so you see a lot of, and that's where the frustration, I think, in that raw instinctual energy that's expressed so well in Aries comes from, because of all of that energy being birthed and re-amplified and going, okay, well, here I go, let's head for the fence. It's cool. I could talk about it more as far as like the oppositions. I was talking about earlier about how two polar opposite signs can really help each other out, even squares and semi-squares. For an example, like Aries. Aries is obviously all about instinctual fire, go, 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 go. And the polar opposite, its teacher, is Libra. And if you know a full-blown Libra, like I know quite a few, they can be extremely indecisive. And what the Aries can teach the Libra is like, hey, Libra can teach the Aries decisiveness and vice versa. And Libras can be really indecisive in the sense where they can't really make a decision, and that's where the Aries energy pushes them and helps them evolve. And that's why relationships and oppositions really help the individual, grow psychologically, development, and even spiritually.
Yeah, that makes sense. I find it interesting, how the different elements get along together too. Like, how you bring up Aries and being a Leo, I noticed that I tend to have very conductive sort of relationships with Aries, and they seem to be. But I think it's because we share that sort of fire, like how you're saying that Aries is always like go, 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 So
that vibrant energy. I was going to ask you actually real quick. Your moon was in Sagittarius, is that right?
My moon is Sagittarius, yeah.
Okay, I was curious. Was your mother really religious?
What's interesting about that is that my mom, my family were sort of like on the surface they were Catholic, but but by themselves they really didn't care. But at the same time, that was the spiritual understanding here. So whether they identified with it or not, they still kind of were along that Catholicism, and we know Catholicism is pretty heavy, shall I say.
It was the basis of it, yeah. With Moon and Sagittarius, it shows like it can show a really strong religious foundation, even to the extreme of a fanatic religious background. Because Sagittarians are ruled by Jupiter, and Sagittarius is all about the higher mind, long travel, higher education, good luck and charm. And while the polar opposite sign of Gemini and the polar opposite energy, planetary energy of Mercury, it's all about the small travel, the small details, and the brotherhood of association. So like a good Gemini-Sagittarian relationship is really good because they're helping each other all evolve. And actually my boss is Sagittarius, and her husband's a Gemini, and they can go really well or they can go really rough. So
Yeah, it's interesting those dynamics the different signs create. And and that's cool. But like I was saying, we can get into that in the second hour since we're already sort of into it. I'll go ahead and give us a little break here, and we'll play a song and come back, and then we can get into whatever you like. So I said we're going to play the new one. All good?
Okay, I'm just going to actually hang up and call back into the line after the break. Is it like 5 minutes?
Yeah, this one's a little longer. I'd say it's about at least 5 minutes. So about at least 5 minutes. So
all right. I'll see you soon, Jerry.
All right, cool. No problem. All right, everyone. Like I said, we do have a new song today, and this is given to us by Car 55, and it's called Earth Mother. So some of you might remember this from the old show, and but we got it back, and we're building our library, so we don't have to keep playing the same crap over and over again. So thanks for bearing with us, everyone, and hope you enjoy the show so far. And here we go. Thank you, everyone. That was Car 55 and Mother Earth. So thank you, Car 55. You guys rock, literally. So we're here today on the Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio channel with our guest, Joseph Aguirre, talking all kinds of fun astrological logistics. So we're going to go ahead and wait for him to call back in. As I think those of you have seen, there's been some technical difficulties going on with the show today, but such is life in this day and age of high technology, or relatively high technology, because we know like the insanely high technology we're not seeing. But either way, there's a lot of technology going on, and that takes a lot of effort, and sometimes it's buggy. So either way, we have Joseph back with us now. And hey, Joe, how's it going?
Hey! You guys hear me loud and clear out there?
Perfect.
All right. Well, for this last hour, I can probably go for the majority of the hour on what I'm about to talk about, but I kind of want to touch bases on my whole Pleiadian encounter, and which was really cool, and so. As far as due to the precession of the equinoxes, I'm not too sure if people can really understand that, because it took me a really long time to understand it myself. But it's basically the ecliptic of the sun going in a pendulum manner, and so it goes back and forth through the ages. And so currently, obviously, as you heard so many times in this New Age community about, awaken to the age of Aquarius, which is a great song, actually. But prior to that, it actually expressed itself mainly in the Egyptian culture. And during the ages of about 42 to 1200 BC, in the development of the Egyptian culture, it was during the age of Taurus. And again, back to Taurus being that fixed earth sign, making the most out of its physical resources. It's an aesthetic sign as well. And so when you look back there into the Egyptian culture, since it was the age of Taurus, they were very glamorous in how as far as they were on their appearances. And that sign is really about preserving and, again, making the most out of the physical resources, and hence the pyramids still stand today. Because whatever consciousness that was exemplified during that time period, they made use of it, had it be aliens or anti-gravity machines that made it. Those big boulders, those big blocks of granite is just remarkable, And so you can really see that in their burial process when it comes to mummification, because they wanted to preserve the physicality and to assure that it is made to the afterlife. And that's why we adopted those mummification properties from the Egyptians today, because they knew what they were doing at some point. But when it comes to a symbolic thing, is that they actually worship the calf, which is a Taurian archetype. But it was an interesting thing to me about the whole Egyptian culture is that there was no development process. It was already established like that, and including with astrology in that system, it was already established. And it could be like the Atlanteans, crashing and going to all the four corners of the earth after that all happened, and carrying that collective intelligence, being in harmony with nature and the planet. But they worshipped the calves back then, and either they're aware of it or not, it still expressed itself. It still validated itself, especially in their burial practices. And so it's really neat to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that actually when we're waiting for you to come back on, we're actually talking about one of our future guests who did a documentary on Egypt and the pyramids, and you kind of they don't strip say, this is what happened, but some of the things you touched upon are some of the things that one can imply from seeing all the evidence that's been amassed now about that era, and it all works into what you're saying. So it'll be a good show. But yeah,
what's her name? Is it a woman?
Yeah, Dr. Carmen Boltier.
Oh man, her documentary blew my mind. Did you see that one?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible. I'm gonna listen to that one, that's for sure. But yeah, and it's interesting since it's the ecliptic goes backwards in a pendulum way. The next astrological age, I guess, if you want to map it out, was 2100 to 1 AD, which is the age of Aries. And with this age, it's really interesting because it's all about, Aries is all about war, and that's what we're going through at that time of our evolution. There was all over the world, with the Egyptians, Greece, and the Romans, and even in China, there was an empire that established itself out there, and as far as the whole Aryan energy, as far as I am that I am, and so they would fight for themselves and express themselves in such a Aryan energy. And Aries actually ruled metal and armor, intentionally that they just wore all this very primal and survival based consciousness, because we didn't really have too much technology back then. But when that actually all shifted, you saw the actual ram archetype as worshiping as that element back then. For instance, you see it with the Egypt pharaoh Akhenaten, and the sun-ruled god with the ram, and with the depiction of what's his name, Alexander the Great. In a lot of pictures, you see him with a rammed horned head. And again, are these cultures aware of what they're doing, or is it just like this synergy and symbiotic relationship that expresses itself, through consciousness? And it's so interesting on how it does that, And so with Aries, again, it's all the development of the ego, and so it can be really primal. And so when it starts to delve into that deep psyche energy, it actually prepares itself for that age that we just came out of, is with the Pisces. And then in Pisces energy, that fish archetype symbol is obviously all over in Christianity. But with the Pisces age, which was, I believe, 180 to 2000 actually AD, it was just that whole brink that taught us how to understand sacrifice in a more of a deep emotional way. Hence the whole crucifixion of Christ, and he's depicted as having the fish element there always, and when that energy is actually really, I guess, at its worst point, it completely sacrifices its own individual for everything else. And it's also that that Buddhism, that Bodhisattva sacrifice. I don't think I pronounced that right, but
I know how it's once again kind of working into those archetypes, right?
Right, exactly. And obviously the symbol of Jesus standing on water. To me, I've always interpreted that as not to get buried on the emotions and to be grounded on top of your emotions, which the Pisces energy is so easily to succumb to their own energy, their own wateriness.
Yeah, you're not kidding about that.
And so it just really, and during the age of Aries, of development of ego and of the fire element was what they were trying to establish. And during the age of Pisces, they were trying to actually master the emotional body, essentially, through sacrifice and just seeing such horrid things happen to that archetypical mystic of Pisces, which was Jesus. And it's just really cool. And some different people or astrologers would say that we went into the age of Aquarius when the planet Uranus was rediscovered back in 70 something. And it was also ironically or even prior to that, because Aquarians is probably one of the most misunderstood sign next to Scorpios, because you can never really understand what's going behind an Aquarian's mind. It's all about it's because again, the last quadrant of energy, it's all the elements have mastered. So, within Sagittarius, that fire element is evolved to the maximum capability, as well as the earth and the water as well. And so in Aquarius, though, when they master, they've taken from the air element and mastered it and transformed it to electricity. That's why if you look at the glyph, it's these two wiggly lines. It's actually could be the Kundalini snakes of that higher consciousness that Aquarians can and express so well, or it could be the electricity of the thoughts. And so, in this age of information, which obviously rules Aquarius, it has this electricity movement, and so it's all about technology and communication, and again, that humane part of it is part of Aquarius. But what's really interesting about our age that we're all living in is that America, the United States, actually has a sun in Cancer with a rising in Scorpio and a moon in Aquarius. I may have the moon and rising backwards because I'm that way. But it's interesting how American consciousness, if you know it in Cancer, they're really home based and about their roots. And we really don't see good classical Americans unless we see our grandparents. The grandparents that drove those really American cars that are still made out of metal and not plastic.
Steel,
That society, those people is a great archetypical symbol of the Cancerian energy because they're all about their family roots and they're really honorable about it. And so when the sun, obviously, because this Cancer also rules food, and we all love food, but America tends to be obsessed with the food industry and the consumption element, and that's very exemplified in Western or American consciousness as well. And since I'm willing to bet actually the moon of America is in Scorpio because of all of that secrecy that we tend to have, and that's a whole different realm of making Joe mad about being secretive. But it's just because they have that falsification of, okay, we're really humane, we're the land of the free, but on our deep unconscious moon, we're really not that humane. And granted, Scorpios can't get the bad rap because we are the ruler of the 8th house. And the thing about Scorpios is that we get a really bad rap just because they don't have a really good moral basis, and so they can evolve in 3 stages. I'm getting kind of sidetracked with this whole age thing, but the Scorpios is they commit because remember the ruler is traditionally Mars, and when Mars is in a watery planet, all the ego energy is broken down and it converts to passion. And so, and when Scorpios have a tendency to hold everything in and blow up at the worst part when they are still Scorpios, but they have a tendency to evolve into what they archetypically say is the Scorpio is the first one where that energy of Scorpio can be really self-destructive, and I experienced that level in my life quite a bit, and then when you grow and burn from the ashes, because another symbol of Scorpio is the phoenix. And it's all about transformation and turns to the eagle, and which is the next sign of Scorpio is the eagle of Sagittarius. And so it's like, okay, I'm me, the Sagittarian, the eagle. I already know what I don't need to hang around Scorpios. You guys are weird and too dark. Blah blah blah. But it looks like actually Amavelia and Juan had a question about Virgo. And I didn't really miss Virgo. I can talk about Virgo after I finish up with the age of Aquarius. Interesting thing, there's also this certain weird belief with the zodiac and the chakra system. And there's this weird connection with Saturn and the root chakra. Obviously, Saturn being naturally Earth-oriented. But most astrologers don't really know how the relationship with Saturn and Aquarius used to relate because of the traditional ruler of Aquarius. And again, the Saturn element or the Saturn planet is all about structure and being limited by space and time, and hence like the root chakra. If you look at the symbolic part of the root chakra is basically the four corners, and it's basically seeking embodiment, and that's why a lot of even cool Aquarians too can be really materialistic too, because they have that earth energy element of that root chakra. But in this one book that I read about the whole, what we're going through and fixated about four-cornered archetypes through the root chakra, there's everything, it comes down to how we want to build our societies, and as far as our blocks, I'm probably confusing people at this point, but it's basically the micro and the macrocosms of how our consciousness works. And you can see that in our movies, and especially in our technology, since technology relates to Aquarius. We're making objects with we're blind by objects with four corners, like the television, the computer. And if you crack open a computer disk, a chip, it's fixated on these blocked four corners, strips of these plastics. And if you take an aerial view of the city, it has these four corners. And so it's really weird that these energies express themselves in not only symbolically, but in a consciousness manner, because again, in the age of Taurus, it was all about the worship of the calf and this kinesthetics and everything. But in the age of Aquarius, it's so weird. And personally, I believe that we're going through some really hard growing pains. And see, there's this people that are evolving in enlightenment or a higher consciousness that Aquariuses are known to be. We are, but the dysfunctionality of unfortunately of Aquarius can be emotionally detached. And so, if you notice in the society or whatever, we kind of are taught to suppress our emotions and whatnot. Which healthy disassociation is there. Especially when you're trying to focus your attention in meditations or even healing. I experience that a lot. And so it's always good, but when you become emotionally desensitized or even suppressive, again, it manifests itself outside itself, and it's not very good.
Yeah.
And you can relate all these really interesting characteristics of Aquarius ever since 2000 or 1876. It really depends on what you really believe in. But yeah.
But why the two different belief systems there?
I'm sorry.
Well, why? Yeah, why? What's the difference? Like I said, depending on which belief system or. I'm sorry.
In astrology, there's always that dualistic manner, because we're going through growing pains, and we're going, from the age of Pisces, we're getting rid of all that emotional embodiment and learning to be intellectually developed in this age of Aquarius. But with any type of signs, there's always the opposition following it. Because not only that we're going through this age of Aquarius, but we also have Leo energy behind us, trying to, hey, let's take care of each other and provide as a whole. And Leos, I love Leos all to death, but they have a tendency to wear the hearts on their sleeves, and it takes the pride of takes the heart of the lion, not the pride of the jungle, if you know what I mean. And it's with Leos, it's interesting to note that it can express itself to the smallest degree of wanting to be an actor. I know a lot of Leos and have Leo moons or whatever that they wanted to be actors. So they wanted to be in the center of the stage. Look at me, which is that creative energy being expressed to the smallest degree. And to the more physical part, Leos are actually governed by children too, because it's that creative happiness and playfulness that Leos are really known to be, and they have this really great tendency to be really generous with that heart, because they're the heart of the sun, But essentially, it's actually the combine energies of Jupiter and Mars together, which makes the energy of the sun. That makes them but yeah, and I like to talk to things about signs in dualistic manners because you get the basis of it. But as far as Virgos, I know quite a bit about Virgo energy because my moon, Mars, and rising are all in Virgo, and it kind of drives the nitpicky, details-oriented mind crazy. But when it goes into the second Earth sign, which is Virgo, and the first one is obviously Taurus, and the last one's Capricorn, it's all about learning skills. In Taurus, you're basically learning self-value through your own fruitions of physical matter. And when you learn with Virgo, it's all about providing that service back to providing service to others. And in Capricorn, it's like, okay, all those skills that I learned in the prior two Earth houses, I got to put into practice. That's why the 10th oriented house is all about putting back to the community. A great personification would be Martin Luther King. He was a Capricorn. And he was trying to get all the energy back. But with Virgos and Pisces oppositions, it's really interesting because they both have a sense of idealism. Pisces can be obsessed with pop culture, anything that helps them escape. They can be obviously succumb to addictions really quick, but it can result obviously to drugs, but also to pop culture. I've seen it always manifest itself in pop culture. They love to read those magazines because it puts them into that Neptunian illusion of fantasy, which they love to experience in the pleasure form. And since they have that idealistic point of view of fantasy, they have this certain idealistic partner or expectation, so they can also be really unhappy because they have this wide dream world expectation. And on the polar opposite of Virgo, it's all about removing what's not needed and purifying it. And because it's around that time of the year in seasonality, it's all about harvest time. And so Mercury is exalted in Virgo for the very purpose of that, of deciphering the knowledge and information that is not really needed. Just like it's masculine part Gemini, it's about concerned with information and facts, but not as much as its partner Virgo, because Virgo is a really feminine energy, and it's a great archetype for that is the Mother Mary and the Virgin. And so they can tend to beat themselves up because somewhere Mercury and energy or Virgo they don't really tend to believe in themselves so much, and it's all good. It's a good balance, but too much Virgo energy, like in my chart, for an example, my Moon, Mars, and Rising are all in Virgo. I was pleased with simplicity. I didn't really want to any too much of information or energy. I should rather can be stagnant. Like too much fire can cause way too much egotistical person. Too much earth energy can cause stagnation, and too much water can create like an empathetic body that absorbs too much energy. Like wear your heart on yourself. Like cancers can be emotional sponges. Is basically what the default of a water sign. But it's awesome. I love Pisces energy just because it has such a strong spiritual potentiality. Because the ego is dissolved in that sign, and they have that veil is so thin they can easily channel like that, or not channel, but have weird dreams, and they're all about the dream world too. Pisces loves nothing but to sleep. Let me tell you that. And that's where they actually get their true rest, is when they're traveling in the dream world. And nothing makes a Virgo happy is productivity and orderliness and cleanliness. But again, if you see a Virgo that's really sloppy and messy, there's chances are that there's a lot of different influences overriding this chart. And that's why if there's one thing that people walk away from this, hearing this, is that the tabloid astrology is completely bunk. And and I'm trying just to have people look further into it and not get turned off by the first tabloid astrology, because people read that and be like, hey, I'm a Scorpio, but that doesn't sound anything like me. And in astrology, there's a certain what we call decandence, and then when the sun is in a certain sign for like the first 2 weeks or a week and a half, it's expressing that sun energy really, really strong. But as it moves further out of the decandence, like the third week of Virgo or everything, it's not going to have those true characteristics. And that's why you got to look at the birth chart to see some other, like a moon will most of the time override a weak sun in a lesser degree, especially if it's on the ascendant. Especially
that makes sense. Yeah.
So the ascendant obviously rules the part of people that how they want the world to see them. And it's really interesting about the ascendant part because it rules physicality. And if you know any type of like real Scorpios or even Leos, they have those Leo eyes, and they'll have those Leo walk. They walk with their shoulders and their heart out in the air.
Yeah, there's a strut. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a strut. My girlfriend's Leo, and she has that, and it's just funny.
That's why I'm married to a Scorpio. So.
What's that?
I'm married to a Scorpio, so that's kind of interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. Does she have those deep, penetrating eyes?
Yeah, she can project through them, and she inherited that from her mother, who is also a Scorpio. Yeah, there's like she's in the chat room right now as Jill the Ripper, and actually
hey Jill.
Yeah, so she's the one that has the three water signs, so very deep.
She has 3 signs in Scorpio?
The rising as Pisces, and moon in Cancer. So, water.
A lot of water. So she has a deep connection with her family, with that moon being there. Her family is really important to her. But see what is there a sign that I haven't covered? If anybody wants to know more about, I know we're kind of wrapping up on time here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think myself even. I think we did get a lot of them though.
We did. Maybe I can also come back on the show too, because I'm also a Reiki Master and I have all information on how to heal and try to remove stagnant energy from chakras and just basically anything, honestly.
Yeah, actually that would be good because one of the things I'm going to be doing besides just these the Tuesday, Thursday interview shows is I want to make another show where I showcase how I said just different healers or such that work in these different modalities that people can get into, because I think a lot of people are looking for what is Reiki, what is NLP, what is EFT, what's Psyche, all these different modalities that are out there, and bring people on who are practitioners or maybe teachers and have them talk specifically about that and how someone can use that in their day-to-day and the practical, So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and actually I really would love to have you back on even too, just where we can even focus on particular astrological things or subjects too.
Oh, that would be awesome. But again, like the main thing that I kind of wanted to express is that when you actually look at your birth chart and focus your intention on these certain difficult or easy aspects, you honestly open up a little vortex of energy in your brain. I have no scientific basis to obviously prove that, but I experienced being self-empowered throughout the years. I'm learning more about myself, And anybody can do it. Then go ahead.
Oh, so I had a question just about like how some of the different elements they're associated with the different sun signs, how they work together in relation to the different signs. Like, for instance, if someone's ascension was a Cancer and they're a Gemini in their sun and they're a moon in a Scorpio, like how would those all relate to each other?
You got to look at the degrees. If they're, because just as the sun is in a certain strong or weak decandent degree, so is the ascension and in the moon.
Gotcha.
And so usually there's one prominent element in a birth chart. I rarely kind of see a elemental balance person, which is really strange. Somebody has like a fire and like fire Mars and a watery something and whatever Earth. Usually, like especially with cusp people, because I'm on the cusp, but most of my planets are still in Libra, and so they usually just have that one energy sign, but they have the mutability or the adaptability to tap into whatever their sister sign they're going into. But you basically will have to look at that specific degree of what their rising is in and their moon compared to the sun.
Gotcha. And like you're saying, the amount of degrees from the beginning, it's like kind of the characteristics of that sign are more intense, correct? And as it kind of diminishes, okay. Yeah,
especially with cardinal signs. You can always point out a Capricorn because the sun is actually obviously if they're Caucasian and are in the Western world, the sun is actually at the lowest point at that time, and so you can see Capricorns with really pasty skin. And there's nothing wrong with pasty white skin. It's just that there was no really solar energy at that time of their birth. And it's interesting to see the physical characteristics of these signs because it shows there's some actually molecular influence, based on this other guy's research. But with body parts, for an example, Capricorn's body part is ruled by their knees, and so and a lot of esoteric information, you hold a lot of pride and ego in your knees, especially if you stand with your knees locked. And I've met, unfortunately, a lot of Capricorns knowing that their knees usually go out first for whatever reason,
Yeah. And
they have like this weird goatish Capricornic nose and ears. It's really fascinating. And but I can with Aries, and their body part is the head, and I've known a couple Aries too that have sent accidents with their head. It's just so weird.
Yeah, I can see that.
And unfortunately, also migraines can also dominate the Aries energy too. And who knows why? I could go off for a while, but in Taurus is their body part is their throat, and that I believe has to do with some of the etheric double that the Tauruses have connection with the Earth, which we can go into that in like the healing and energies part of it. But they actually rule the throat, and so a lot of really good Tauruses, again, are really good singers because they use that throat chakra so well. And with Gemini, their body parts are actually their shoulders, arms, and hands, and so they can hold a lot of tension into their shoulders and their arms just because of that restlessness, mercurial energy that keeps on going around and around. It's like having 3 cups of coffee at noon that prior day and not be able to sleep. I'm sure we all experience that restless Gemini energy. And you can really actually feel that during a full moon that's in Gemini.
Interesting.
Yeah. And with Cancers, actually, this is probably most manifested I've seen all the time, is that their body part is the breast and the stomach. And so essentially they hold their emotions there. And it depends on how they actually digest it. Because with Cancers, since it's the first rush birth into the water element, they're symbolically protected by that Cancerian shell, and so you got to keep on penetrating and penetrating and penetrating and penetrating to get to it. And once you actually broke through, then they're all over you. They those little pincher crabs, they will hold on to you and never let go. You're like, let me breathe. But and then the reason is, I believe, is that because they got guarded really quick, because if you were this emotional child in a realm of emotions and you absorb that all, you would just build a really quick defense mechanism as well.
Yeah, that does make sense. I think that because I think a lot of people do see that Cancer sign as they tend to be fairly stoic in some sense, or gruff, or can be in a lot of ways, but but like how, like you're saying, that they got that way because of like this necessity of being so sensitive in a sense.
Right. Exactly. That's why you gotta love Cancers, because they're doing really hard work on the emotional realm, and Scorpios too, and Pisces. But yeah, those Cancers you gotta love them, and you gotta love to hate them too.
Yeah, they can be pretty frustrating. But I guess all signs could be like insanely obnoxious sometimes, especially I should know how that goes being a Leo too. You know, I know we could be.
Absolutely. Like, one of my best friends is a Leo, and since my Moon, Mars, and Rising, I've always had Virgos and Leos around me. My girlfriend's a Leo, my best friend's a Leo, and the band that I used to be in was a Virgo energy and Libra energy, but it's just and it works for me. I'd rather hang around a bunch of Virgos and Leos opposed to a bunch of high people, Pisces or Sagittarians that are up there. Like but the Cancers, they gotta watch not to eat their emotions essentially, and because it can cause even more suppression and a weird bad relationship with food. But with Leo, for an example, their body part is the heart. Yeah, and it weighs them down in the pain aspect of their back, unfortunately, because they can experience extreme back problems, and I think that's too much of Leos can naturally burn out really quick. And that's it's a part of them not actually taking care of themselves and putting all of that courageous love energy back into themselves. And so that's why I believe personally they can experience lower and back problems. Of course, a little yoga stretching helps too, but once they make that conscious effort to put that creative energy and love energy that they have for the world, that they're potentially to have, back into themselves, first and foremost.
Yeah, and I think that, like, especially with the lower back, I think that correlates too with having. Usually the Leo tends to have a very dominant third chakra associated with that kidney area, and the adrenals. And and you know how they once again being a fire sign, go. It's like you have a lot of that energy is at the disposal, and that obviously overutilizing that towards outside expressions will definitely cause a detriment. So yeah.
Exactly. Just as the emotional chakra, the stomach chakra of the Cancer, there's a lot of Cancers that I read about, even the celebrities that, have stomach issues, cancers, die of pancreatic cancers. Cancer, it's really neat in the sense that, that we can learn so much about ourselves on the stars and take care of. There's so many tools out there that we can balance and heal ourselves. It's ridiculous. And every being on this planet or even the solar system has the ability to reestablish itself, reconnect itself with the original blueprint of optimal health state. And we can go into that with the next talk when I talk about Reiki and stuff and about that, because that's awesome too.
Yeah.
Looks like, what time is it?
We have about 12 minutes left, give or take. So,
okay.
Yeah. So is there anything that you want to touch upon that maybe that you want to talk about that we just hadn't got to yet, or maybe start tying us into the healing, or I don't know, wherever you want to take it at this point, wherever you feel hot.
I kind of still maybe want to talk about astrology, or kind of open. I'd like to go actually through the rest of the body parts, the physicality parts, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's all very informative right now. That's why I'm just like letting you go with it, because it's all just great information. Just letting you teach us all here.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll see. What sign was I on? Was I on?
We just got done talking about Leos in the back.
Leo in the back. So that's right. Okay. And the next sign is obviously Virgo, and Virgos have a really similarity as far as physicality goes to Cancers, because digestive rules the Virgos in their stomachs, but not into the emotional part. It's more of on how, because again, Virgo is all about processing things that's not needed anymore. And so Virgos tend to hold all of their stuff in their digestive part right above the stomach, where they really need to be careful in what they eat and put into their body, because since they're the worry wart of the zodiac. and they can destroy themselves so crazy. And if they don't take care of themselves, number one, they're a lot easier to succumb to like psychosomatic, energies in their brain. They can fall because they already have that natural depressed energy to begin with and not believing in themselves, so just as any earth sign does, but particularly with Virgo. But once Virgo gets in there, because Virgos are naturally late bloomers, and so, but they just got to make sure they eat healthy. And see, Libra's body part is the hips, and personally I believe a lot of Libras are ruled by the hips is because of that interrelationship connection with the second chakra, with the lower portion of the second chakra, that they have this strong desire to connect with people. Libras love nothing to be surrounded by their friends and other people, because in turn it reassures their whole desire of that relationship, especially with a lover or something like that. And so I believe it's just that lower realm that they seem to be fixated on their lower chakras, and their hips can go out really quick. And the next sign will obviously be Scorpio, and their body part is actually the genitalia, interesting enough. And that's why we can get bad records or bad frames for being, the horrors of the zodiac. But that's not true. And a lot of full-blown Scorpios, you'll never see them have children.
Yeah.
And who knows why that is, but their body part is the reproductive system. And I think that's the severity of having Mars in such a passionate sign, or being debunked by the water element, because I don't know why they're sexual freaks. That's God only knows that, but it can wear out really quick, unfortunately. Their sexual energy can get depleted if not balanced really well. And I'm glad that I'm not a full-blown Scorpio, because I know full-blown Scorpios, and man, that's just too intense for the Joe.
Joe was like, "Whoa, why don't you slow?" I heard it.
Whoa, too much Scorpio. And Sagittarians are actually ruled by their thighs, since the centaur, half man and half horse, is on there, aimed at an angle towards the sky. They tend to hold all of their expressiveness in their lower thighs. And so, because Sagittarian energy has a tendency to overdo it. They can overdo it and not know when to say no or stop. And so it kind of holds them on the ground, but they need to realize that enough is enough, and they are capable of achieving whatever higher enlightenment or in Sagittarian energy that it expresses so much in religion. That's what they hold a lot of nervous energy in their thighs, and it can come with a lot of restlessness, in the sense that you never had that restless leg syndrome. Have you felt that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be experienced by Sagittarians, I've noticed, energy.
It's interesting. Yeah, I've only known a couple of Sages, and I tend to get along with them. I think once again that fire element, but yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, and see, we already went through Capricorn and the knees.
Yeah, that's right.
And Aquariuses are actually essentially ruled by their ankles, and so they also can have. My phone's about to die. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Okay, let me plug in here somewhere. And so, the ankles are ruled by the Aquarians for some reason, and it also has to deal with the circulation system in the wintertime, oddly enough. And so if I lose you, I'm sorry. I'm trying to hook up my phone, my battery at the same time.
Yeah, no worries. So we're almost done here. We have about 5 minutes, a little less than 5 minutes, anyways. So hang in there, Joe. We've managed to hold this show together, and it's been a little bit of a challenge.
We did. It was weird, man, and I apologize for that technical difficulty to the listeners and everybody else.
Hey, I had them too, man. This happens, it just happens. So it's all good. It's been very informative. So this is very cool. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and let me know when that other energy stuff. I'll be happy to get on there too.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Aquarians and the ankles, I think is what we use.
Yeah, the Aquarians and the ankles, because the Aquarians have to do with the circulation of the nervous system. And so, oddly enough, I've met Aquarians that their ankles go bad. You know, I want to know, my Virgo mind wants to know how all this works, but, you know, I just don't. And, of course, Pisces, the beautiful Pisces, are ruled by their feet. And I think that has to do with their continuation of just being ungrounded. They need to be grounded so much that their energy's out of their feet. And Pisces just loves to get their feet rubbed, that's for sure. And so, if they don't really, I think the part of the body of the feet are the most ignored and neglected part of the body, too, anyways. And when you start to heal the feet, you become more inside the body when you start to like rub them or give yourself a foot massage or something like that. But yeah, that's their body part, and to me, because I think they're so out in space so much that they need to be grounded.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, do we get all of them then? I think at that point.
I believe we did.
I think so. That's pretty good timing because we only have a few minutes anyway. So, I guess, and this is the last little bit of time we have here. Why don't you let people know how they might be able to find you online or email you or anything if they want to just get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good thing. I don't have a website. I eventually want to write a book about this because I think the world needs to hear this portion of astrology. But you can, go to my Facebook and Joseph Aguirre. I'd be happy to chat with you. And before this, I was actually posting kind of like happy birthdays to each signs each month when it came on. But I'll continue to do that if you guys want to chat, ask me any questions. I'll be great. I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, Joe, thank you for being on, and thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was really, really cool and refreshing to hear astrology from your point of view. As you said, it really has paid off that grounded point of view that you try to, present to people, and like I said, it's very informative and entertaining. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and we'll talk to each other soon.
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe what we can do sometime, too, is just even maybe set up like a reading show or something where we have people submit their information, then you pick some and something like that. That might be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd be happy to do that. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, cool, Joe. Well, thanks for calling, and thanks, everyone, for listening once again to Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio. And tune in next week when we're going to have some more awesome guests, including Carrie Cassidy of Project Camelot, and also Stephen Bassett, exopolitical fame. So it's going to be a very intriguing time next week, talking about all kinds of things flying around all over space, all over inner and outer. So once again, thank you very much, Joe, and we'll look forward to having you on again.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Rock on, everyone, and we will rock out with a little favorite tune of all of ours here until we get some more. So send those songs if you got them, everyone. We need the help, and we like to encourage and help any way we can, too. So, all right, everyone. See you next time. Flexing to inward heart, try
Just a candle in my hand.